All right, ladies and gentlemen, today's video, we're going to be talking about Ubisoft and the massive levels of cope that the CEO is currently putting out there. Ladies and gentlemen, Assassin's Creed Shadows really should be honestly studied. It should be studied. It should be studied in the sense that this company will literally try to convince everybody that this game was massively successful, right? They would try to convince everybody that they ignored the haters or that they beat the chuds. They won over the internet. But what I really want to start this video by saying is that if you're out here trying to claim victory over the chuds, I don't really think it's a good idea to claim victory over the chuds when you were the ones that had to sell your booty holes for 25% of your most popular IPs to the Chinese, right? Tencent owns 25% of every single one of your popular IPs. I don't think that's a victory. Okay. I just want to preface this entire video by saying that I don't think that's a victory at all. If you want to consider that to be a victory, sure, go for it. But that sounds like a lot of cope to me. So let's go over this article from PC Gamer and talk about how the CEO has claimed that it just had to stop feeding the trolls. We're just trolls. That's it. We're all just literally trolls. We bring nothing to the table. We don't bring any conversation of gaming or anything like that. We're literally just trolls. When it came to Assassin's Creed Shadows, which very quickly eliminated the fights. Yeah, apparently they considered by ignoring us that it eliminated the fights with Assassin's Creed Shadows. I don't think that's true at all, but okay. Which apparently were just fake fights. They're calling it fake fights now. This is a beautiful thing. Remember when Assassin's Creed Shadows controversy? I barely do. Yeah, you're full of shit, okay? PC Gamer's full of shit here because you guys brought up the controversy every fucking day that you possibly could have. All right. You guys had articles on full defense for Assassin's Creed Shadows at the mere whisper of XYZ players engaged. You guys were one of the first people putting out an article. You're not fooling anybody, okay? If you listen to a very particular crowd back when it was revealed the game would feature Yasuke, a real historical figure who's been referenced a whole bunch in Japanese media anyway, you would have thought it was the end of days. Initially, Ubisoft tried to mollify said crowd, calm them down, which, well, it went about as well as you would expect. Again, this is why these people lose. Okay. I don't know how else to explain it. This is why these people lose because they take the conversation, they misrepresent it, and then they bastardize it, and then they try to make it seem as if it's fact. These people know what the real conversation is, okay? These people know that when Ubisoft was making a video game in 2020, the year of literal DEI, okay? 2020 was a year that a lot of things happened. We entered the Twilight Zone in 2020, and DEI took massive precedence for a lot of companies because of what happened to George Floyd. So they all started doubling down and tripling down on DEI initiatives because of that. And they all wanted to virtue signal and be the company that is a shining light against the racism that George Floyd experienced. So it is not shocking that they decided to come up with Yasuke as the lead character for Assassin's Creed Shadows in 2020 when the game started development, right? But the funny thing is, they apparently had another character that they were going to go with until what happened in 2020, and then they switched it over to Yasuke, right? So it makes you wonder why you misrepresent all this stuff, why you decide to talk about it from a sense of, well, we all know what those people are. It's like, bro, why are you othering people? These are people having genuine conversations. It may not be conversations you don't like to hear, but they're having genuine conversations. And for you to basically bastardize them and other them and put them off to the side, you are no better than the people you claim to be against. That's the hilarious thing about this. Anyway, the sky didn't fall. What actually happened was the game sold pretty well. Yeah, how well? You got numbers? You got numbers? It never ceases to amaze me that these people will claim that XYZ game sold well, but they never have any fucking numbers to back it up, which is hilarious because you actually have numbers on Steam, right? I think it's estimated to sell around 700 to 800,000 copies on Steam. You have some numbers, but you don't have all the numbers. But you'll be like, yeah, the game sold really well. Compared to what? It is the lowest selling game of the entire franchise in terms of volume, in terms of actual units sold. Oh, but I can already hear the cope, guys. You know what the latest cope is? Here's the latest cope. Every single copy is worth more. Oh, every copy is worth more. That's the gold standard. right? So the games are worth more money. They're more expensive. So that means that they made more money per copy sold. So they made almost as much revenue as the other games that sold more copies. But what they forget to tell you is that that only works in a perfect world where costs don't go up. That only works in a perfect world where inflation doesn't exist. Where I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but the gaming industry has been trying to convince us over the last year and a half that they had to raise the price on their video games. They had to raise the price on their consoles. They had to raise the price on their DLCs, on everything because of costs going up. So have the costs gone up or have the costs not gone up? Can we have an explanation to this, please? Because it doesn't seem to correlate. Anyway, the sky didn't fall. The game sold pretty well as an entertaining open world romp, and we all moved on with our lives. Are you sure about that? In other words, well, I mean, that is true. We did move on. In other words, Ubisoft made a Ubisoft game, which that's what I said. You know, I actually played Assassin's Creed Shadows and completed it, unlike these journalists. I highly doubt they did any of that. And when I reviewed the game objectively, I said that the game has good moments and the game has bad moments. And unfortunately, there was a little bit more bad than good. But for the most part, if you really had to put a nail on it, the game was fucking mid, bro. That's basically it. The game was extremely mid with some god-awful voice acting that they need to redo. Aside from that, it's a mid fucking experience, and it is a massive letdown for an Assassin's Creed game based in Japan that people have been asking for years. It was a major, major letdown. But in any case, nothing exploded because a Black Samurai was in it. Gaming survived. Part of why Shadow's release was uneventful was in part because of Ubisoft's sudden pivot to essentially stop feeding the trolls. Speaking at a BAFTA event last year, former franchise head Mark Alexis Cote put his foot down. When we self-censor in the face of threats, we hand over our power piece by piece until freedom and creativity both wither away. We cannot let that happen. It's time for us as creators to stand firm on our commitment to our values by telling stories that inspire, that challenge, and that help people connect. Our silence cannot become complicit. Cote did, however, recently get slowly encouraged to leave the company, which will go some ways to explain the level of cynicism I'm about to apply to Ubisoft CEO in coming words here, which don't necessarily match up to the actions taken by Ubisoft in the ensuing months. More on that later. The CEO more or less agrees in a transcript shared by GameFile of an internal company video that more or less goes over this process of inviting the culture warriors to vote with their wallet, which, as mentioned above, nobody did. So it was all a bunch of upsetting, racially charged hullabulu. I have no idea what that even says. That's not to say Eve is quite as impassioned as Cote was, though he stabs at roughly the same gist. In September 2024, we had our backs against the wall, and that's when it clicked. To get out the corner, we had to stop focusing on those who hated us. We had to start firing up our allies. So we stopped trying to win the argument and leaned on what had carried us for 18 years, the Assassin's Creed brand. No. That's not it. That's not it at all. What he decided to do was double down and triple down on shillery. That's what he decided to do. They started paying all these content creators, like Fighting Cowboy, for example, who to this day had one of the biggest meltdowns regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows, convinced everybody that they were assholes for making it all about Yasuke and that they should just play the fucking game. And he has only one stream of the game. He has one stream of the game, and he gave it up after that. This man got paid or promoted to play Assassin's Creed Shadows, and he didn't even have the fucking balls to go more than one stream for the game. Unbelievable. Most of the shills that Ubisoft relied on to try to counter the narrative that was happening with Assassin's Creed Shadows either never played the game or barely played the game. I saw people play the game for a couple of hours and then they quit and they never returned. You know who finished the game? This fucking chud finished the game. You know who has 50 fucking hours in Assassin's Creed Shadows to ensure that I finished the game and people could see what it was really about? This fucking chud has it. You know, this fake gamer, the one who supposedly doesn't play video games. I finished the fucking game, which goes to show you shills aren't worth shit, but they decided to use you anyway. On top of that, they decided to go after the mainstream media, right? They decided to utilize journalists to push the message of players engage. They kept utilizing that number. They wanted to get an own on Grums. They wanted to get an own on whoever, like on social media. And this is why I think it's funny, right? They think it's funny because they thought that by ratioing Grums, which was funny, by the way, they thought that by ratioing Grums that was going to be the win. you guys still lost. I hope you understand that there is no winning for you here. You had to sell your soul to Tencent to buy you out from your own failures. You couldn't live with your own failure. So it brought you back to Tencent, right? And Tencent is going to do it again. I hope you realize that if you don't get your shit together, Tencent is looking at you and they're waiting and they're biding their time until they eventually own you by 50%. And then they're going to do it again until eventually they can own you for 100% at a very cheap cost versus what it would have cost them if they would have bought you out, the first time. They know exactly what they're doing. You don't know what you're fucking doing. And the hilarious thing is that you have this new subsidiary, but you got the same people running it that ruined the first company in the first place. So what exactly are you going to do here, right? Ubisoft can cope and seethe all they want. You can pretend like you're not, giving energy to the trolls or whatever. But the truth is that Assassin's Creed Shadows was a failure. It had an insane budget, a disgusting budget, and it didn't sell enough copies to make anywhere near its budget back. And it damn sure didn't make enough copies to come anywhere close to a game like Valhalla, for example, or any of the games in the franchise. You can cope and seethe about, but it's worth more, so it made more money. Yeah, but it costs more, jackass. It costs more, you fucking genius. Unless you think inflation doesn't exist. You want to have that conversation about inflation not existing, costs not existing, the amount of rising costs that have happened over the last couple of years, you fucking idiot. Like, you really want to have that conversation? No, not really. Of course not. You want to go argue with retards on YouTube and on social media who can't fight you back because you're a fucking idiot. It's unbelievable. So in any case, ladies and gentlemen, I love to see it. I love to see the coping and seething from Ubisoft, a company that had to sell their most popular IPs that used to be worth money all on their own. They had to sell their most popular IPs to the Chinese because there was no other way for them to get out of their debt. There's no other way for them to actually get out of the trouble that they put themselves in. And Tencent knows exactly what they're fucking doing. So you guys let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you think that Ubisoft owned the chuds? Do you think that Ubisoft won the fight? Or do you think Ubisoft is coping and seething? You guys let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you enjoyed it, consider hitting that like and that subscribe. And I will see you guys on the next one.